All right, with me is Frank, and Michelle's in the background there. They're traveling down the road right now, going to do their thing, and Frank's going to share with me. He knows it's a recorded line. He's going to share with me what it is that they do and how effective it is, and then we'll go through a role play of what they say to get into the door. Hey, Frank, thanks for joining me today.
You're welcome, Chris. How are you?
Wonderful, thanks. And basically tell me what you do, because I'm fascinated by it. It's a marketing strategy that I think would benefit a lot of agents out there, including myself.
Well, I tell you, I've been in the business a long time, Chris. Michelle joined my firm about 3 years ago. And our dilemma was basically the same dilemma that every other agent out there is faced with. Where do I get leads? What are the costs of the leads? And what kind of return on the investment for those leads am I getting? And unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that are marketing leads that are not giving agents in the field a leg up. I mean, it's just a twist on some of the lead pieces. It is somebody to see that's not really as effective as they claim it to be.
Right.
So a couple of years ago, Michelle and I decided that we were going to take a different approach in our marketing endeavors. And we had to come up with an idea of how can we see more people, because we're in a people-driven business. Mm-hmm. The more people we see, the better our chances of making a sale. But it gets to the point where you're doing a lead drop. The returns are not as good as they used to be, and people are not really anxious to have an agent come out and visit. Years ago, that was different, but times changed, so we have to change with economic conditions. So what we decided to do, Chris, is we decided to get a list from a direct mail house, not direct mail pieces, but a list of people to see. And what we had was a demographic of ages 65 to age 80. And what we wanted to do is to concentrate our efforts in one county or one city. So you can get those lists from a lot of different sources, but it's very economical. I think we average about $150 per order for 1,000 to 2,000 names. And what we do at that point is that we go door to door in a certain city, and what happens, I'm hitting some traffic, sorry about that, I'm having a break, 16-wheeler's about to hit me. But what we do is we plan our day on a certain area, and we want to see so many people. We average about 50 to 60 doors a day that we go to. And what we do is we had to have a plan. So everybody gets mail pieces. Every senior out there is inundated by people mailing them pieces on a regular basis.
Right.
So what we're doing is we're going in and saying, we pull up to the house. I approach the door either jointly or individually. Michelle and I work together every day, so it's good to have somebody to work with. If you're on your own out there, it doesn't make any difference. Your biggest objective is to get somebody to talk to you about what you have to offer them. So our approach has been when we get to the door, I say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, my name's Frank Couch. I represent Mutual of Omaha Insurance Company. number one, that gives name recognition. Everybody has heard of Mutual of Omaha. Now, I do represent Mutual of Omaha, and I would not recommend somebody that's not licensed to use that name, but you've got to have some kind of name recognition when you approach a door. And I said, I am in the area. I have a lot of people to see out here. We had recently mailed you some information on ways to save money on your supplemental insurance. Now, United of Omaha just came out with Plan N, just like several other companies. Doesn't really matter, but I use that company because of the name recognition. Say, I know that you may or may not have remembered receiving that in the mail. I know you get a lot of information in the mail, but I was in the area. I'm between appointments right now, and any time that we mail a piece that will help a senior save money, we want to stop in and visit them if we have time. So that kind of decreases the resistance because, number one, their name recognition, and two, they generally know that they've received a piece of mail from another company. Even though we didn't send it, Michelle and I didn't send it to them. They remember getting a piece from Mutual of Omaha or whatever company is out there. So I say to them, I wanted to stop by, introduce myself, and kind of go over some ways to save money. Would that be important to you? And they're either going to say yes or no. So I'm going to role play with you for a minute, Chris. Chris, if that's okay, to tell you how I get in the door.
Okay.
All right. So I'm knocking on the door, and you're answering it. And
hello. How can I help you?
Hey, Chris. This is Frank. I'm with Mutual of Omaha Insurance Company. The reason I stopped by today, you may or may not remember getting a piece from us in the mail on ways to save money on your Medicare supplement. Do you remember that?
I get so much mail, I really don't know.
You know, Chris, I'm the same way. I get tons of mail, and most of it goes into File 13, and I'm sure you have the same system that I have. You stand over the trash can and throw most of it away, not opening it.
Right.
But this is so important that I did want to stop by and introduce myself because my job with Mutual of Omaha is to help people save money that they don't necessarily need to be sending to an insurance company. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Well, I know the importance of insurance, but a lot of people don't understand that there are options out there for them to reduce their cost of insurance, and I wanted to stop by for a few minutes and just kind of explain how you can save money without losing the coverage that you have. Have you got just a few minutes?
Well, if you can just leave me your brochure, that'd be fine.
Well, I would be glad to do that, Chris, but I tell you, a lot of people don't really understand these brochures, and really, if I can explain it, it will be so much more benefit to you. Have you got 5 or 10 minutes that we can sit down and kind of discuss some options for you?
Well, just leave me something behind, and I'll call you if I'm interested.
Well, I'm here now. If you've got 10 minutes, this is so important, Chris. It is very valuable information. And I can explain these brochures because a lot of people that read them don't really understand them. Is saving money on your insurance important to you?
Oh, sure, of course it is. Got to save money everywhere you can.
You bet, especially since we didn't have a Social Security increase this year.
Yeah, that's the truth.
So a lot of people I visit with, we find out after we have a conversation, sometimes there's more month than there is month.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the case for you?
Absolutely.
Well, would it be worth 10 to 15 minutes of your time to find out some ways that can reduce your cost?
Oh, okay. Come on in.
Okay. All right. Well, we're in the door, and basically, I really don't care if they have supplemental insurance with XYZ or ABC. My focus is to generate a final expense set.
Okay.
So what I'm doing is that I'm starting off with some plans that Mutual of Omaha may or may not be able to save them money. But I kind of want to get some fact-finding done to see how much money they are spending on their supplements. So I know that. And then what I do is I transition into fact-finding questions about life insurance. Well, are you having to pay a lot of money on life insurance? Do you have a cancer policy? Are there ways to cut or eliminate some costs there? What kind of coverage do you have? Is it a term through AARP that expires at age 80? So I do those fact-finding, and basically it will make a lot of sense to these people after you sit down and review what they have. And 9 times out of 10, Chris, I say, well, your Medicare supplement is great. I can't help you do anything with that. Well, what that does is that reduces the barrier that I have because they like to know that they're doing something that's good.
Sure.
So I said, but, looking at what you're spending on final expense, there's some options out there for you that will actually increase your coverage for the same amount of money or decrease the cost for the coverage that you're wanting. And then I go into the presentation on the final expense.
Okay.
So that's how I get in the door. Now, each person is going to have a different technique on how to close the deal. It is important to give those people something, and if they are spending more money on a supplement than they need to, then certainly help. If they are spending less money than what you can give them on a supplement, don't change it.
Mm-hmm.
If they're spending less money on a life insurance policy, don't change it. Don't hurt those people.
Right.
But the benefit of having some options for these people are very important. And you've got to have a definite plan of action when you're going out and knocking on doors. I think it's a lost art myself because nobody that I know really is doing that anymore.
Right.
And the rejection rate is high. You have to have persistency in what you're doing to be effective. But it does work. And Michelle and I have made significant money in doing this. Now, have we gone through dry spells? Sure. But we've also made significant money on a weekly and monthly basis.
Can you tell me, Frank, how do you set up your plan of your week? Do you have certain days that you go out or certain hours during those days? How do you set up your week?
We're normally out every day, Monday through Friday, and sometimes Saturday, because a lot of people that we see don't have the time to talk to us, but they're interested. So we'll set the appointment for a follow-up visit. And, we've got 4 today that we've done knocking on doors that are set appointments that could not see us at the time, but they are very interested in saving money.
That's great.
So you're not going to get in every door every time to to present, but you can set a time that is convenient for them because they didn't know you were coming or I was coming.
Right.
So it's not a convenient time sometimes for these people. Most of the time, I'd say 80% of the time, if they're interested, they'll take the time to talk to you.
Okay. Do you see them more in the afternoons?
So we set up our day. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just wondering, since more seniors are working nowadays, do you spend majority of your time in the afternoons as opposed to the morning, or does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
No. A lot of seniors, and you're exactly right, a lot of people are going back to work. And mornings or afternoons will work. We don't like to stay out past 6 o'clock. However, I think that it would work from 6, especially in the summertime when the sun's out.
Right.
A little bit longer, you could probably see more people, but we've got a life too, and we don't want to do that all the time. So it does work. I mean, nothing works unless you do, and our philosophy is the more people we see, the more we'll make.
Right. After you've done this for so long, do you have any numbers as far as if you knock on 50 doors or you see 50 people in it? Well, I guess you wouldn't have to actually see 50 people. Your plan of seeing 50 to 60 doors a day.
That's correct.
What is there any typical number of presentations you'll be able to make or fact-finding interviews you'll be able to conduct in a typical day of 50 to 60 doors?
You know, I really don't do an average on that, Chris. What I look at is numbers of commissions. Last week, Michelle and I did, I think, 8 United of Omaha insurance sales, 1 annuity sale, and 1 Forster's insurance sale. So that was a pretty good week. This week we've had two. Well, today's Wednesday. Yeah, we've had 2 United of Omaha sales so far this week. So what I look at is bottom line commission for the week. I want to make $5,000 a week. That's my goal. So to answer your question, no, I don't keep up with how many interviews I do a day.
It doesn't matter, and as long as you hit your goal, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm talking to a lot of people, so I don't have a clue.
Do you leave anything behind with those people that say they're too busy and they don't see you now? A flyer, a card, anything you leave behind?
It depends. You know, I have to have a feel for what I'm who I'm talking to.
Right.
So you know, if I don't want to waste their time or mine if they're not going to call me back. Typically, when I leave information behind, that's just a blow off,
Right.
and I never do any business with
Right.
it. So I guess it works sometimes, but normally I don't leave anything behind.
You mentioned that you do annuities, and I know that you do from time to time. Do you focus on the fixed annuities or the indexed annuities?
Primarily, Chris, the index.
Okay.
I just feel like that's more bang for the buck for my clients.
And do you have a particular company that you like better than another?
Well, it really depends on the situation. I don't use a cookie cutter approach on the annuities. I use Aviva a lot. I like their balanced allocation annuity strategy. Home Mutual is a good company. Legacy Marketing is a good one. It just depends on the situation.
Oh, single premium life. We had a discussion about that before. And do you find many opportunities for single premium life? And what does a typical single premium life policy sale look like?
Well, single premium is really overlooked in our industry, and there's a big need for the single premium life. And where I find most of those clients is that they have an annuity that they've earmarked for a legacy to the beneficiaries. They're not going to touch the money. What they want to do is pass it on to their children or grandchildren or spouse. And I'll show them a way with single premium life to take the money from the annuity and put it into a single premium life and almost double the account value when they pass away. So instead of having it tax deferred at that point, it now becomes tax free to the beneficiary, and they like that.
That's great. Do you run across those very often where that's a good fit?
Last year I did about $500,000 in premium on single premium life. So yeah, I do run across.
Who do you like in the single premium market nowadays? Is there one that stands out above the rest?
Not really. The single premium life is number one, geared towards requirements for underwriting. I've used Oxford Life, Baltimore Life, North American. It really depends on the underwriting criteria, and there's a lot of information that you need to know. That's a lengthy conversation for us for another day.
Okay.
But it does work.
All right.
Yeah, it all boils down to your knowledge of fact finding. How can you help that client that you're in front of?
Right.
So it's not for your typical agent to go out there and do exactly what Michelle and I do, because we have a lot of knowledge in insurance.
On this thing,
the biggest thing that you can do, is to generate income off of the final expense.
Okay. That's your bread and butter.
That's your quickest. Yeah, that's your quickest return.
Okay. And on those names that you go back to, that you're getting the names of 65 to 80-year-old folks, do you have an income guideline that you filter for as well?
None.
Really?
No. No income.
Wow.
No. No, we've actually knocked on doors and some projects and trailers that are falling apart and come out with $125 a month premium.
That's awesome. And then you can just change your hats and go right into the richer neighborhoods and sell them the annuities and the single premium life with no problem.
Not a bit.
That is awesome.
It's kind of like being a diplomat. You've got to change your hats to fit the person that you're talking to.
So the United of Omaha Plan N is your pretty much your bread and butter on the med-sup side right now?
It is right now.
Okay.
It is, yeah.
That's great.
Of course, it's great for that residual income.
Yeah.
But my focus is always on a final expense.
Okay.
That's it.
That's awesome. And you and Michelle go as a team. How important should the agent focus on getting somebody to add some value and some credibility by standing next to them, whether it be a pretty wife or girlfriend, assistant, associate, somebody to go out there with them? What would you and Michelle have to say about your ability to get in the door with her there by your side as opposed to without her by your side?
Well, it's kind of like, it works if you're a single or a team. We've talked to a lot of people that I've written cases for, and they call the office and want to talk to Michelle. They didn't even remember I was there. So it's impressive to have somebody that's good looking to be with you.
That's great.
But, it'll work either way.
Okay.
A lot of people are intimidated for a guy coming to the door, especially older women.
Right.
They don't want to open the door to a stranger like that. But Michelle kind of reduces that barrier in our situation.
Right.
They trust a woman more than they do a man.
Do you do any visual cues that would lead them to lend you more credibility than otherwise they would have? Wear a ID tag around your neck that I've seen a lot of final expense agents do. I've done that, to wear your license around your neck and that kind of thing. Or do you dress in any certain way that lends itself to more credibility on your part? How do you look to them when they're opening the door?
Well, all I have is a sheet of paper with their name on it when I go to the door, and I'm a casual dresser. I've tried the coat and tie. They look at the coat and tie as a typical salesperson.
Okay.
If you're dressed casually, you're on their level. They're not in a suit and tie, so it's more of a conversation approach instead of a business approach. So I think it works better for us to be that way.
Do you take a briefcase up to the door?
No.
Okay.
No, all I have is a sheet of paper with their name on it. I don't want to have a briefcase in front of them at all. I'll leave that in the car.
That's great. Okay. Do you find any awkward transition when you say, I'm going to go out in my car and get some rates on final expense and see if I can help you in that regard, or do you have access to that with what you've got as you're walking into the house? How do you make that transition?
No. No, all I do is say, well, I think I can help you. Let me go get out my book and let's see what we can do.
Okay.
They're anxious at that point.
Okay. That's great. 5 days a week of knocking on doors. That's some hard work.
Yeah, it is hard work, but persistency does pay off. And Michelle and I are getting to a point now where all the door knocking, because we do follow-ups, mailers with our clients, we're finding that it's easier to get referrals, not on the first visit, but maybe 2 or 3 mailings out to them. We use a newsletter. We try to stay in contact with our clients. Michelle does a phone call on their birthdays, wishing them happy birthday, sends out a birthday message to them.
That's great.
So, it's the repetition. The more you talk to these people, the more you're in front of them. We do annual reviews, which is important. We get a lot of referrals that way. So I wish I had the magic answer, but hard work and persistency has helped us tremendously.
Okay. And lastly, when you've made that final expense sale and you're about to leave, how do you ask for referrals then, or do you? I know you follow up after the sale and you build that trust and confidence by your follow-up, but do you ask for referrals right then and there?
Normally I say, I want you to think about some people that Michelle and I can help. And I don't really ask for a referral at that time. Now, Michelle has a referral sheet that she normally sends after they've received the policy. And what we try to do is say, we're here to help your friends, family, neighbors. If you can think of anybody that we can help reduce cost, increase coverage, please let them know about us. And she normally sends a return envelope, postage paid, so they can send that referral back to us.
That's a great idea.
So, the referral, the problem is solidifying the sale. And after you solidify a sale, Chris, when you get the ink on the application, in my opinion, it is not the best time to talk about giving me a list of people to see.
Yeah.
Because they really don't know me from Adams House Cat at that point. But once they have the policy in their hand,
right,
they review it. We follow up, make sure that they've got it. If they have any questions, then is the time that it is more likely to get good referrals.
Gotcha. Do you deliver your policies in person?
No.
Okay.
Don't have time to do that.
Okay, very good. And out of a typical day, how many hours are you going to spend knocking on doors in that day? Or is it not limited by hours? It's based on production success or presentations given? How do you gauge that?
Well, it varies. What we try to do is to leave by 8 in the morning, get to an area. We don't concentrate in one area very long, so we have to go out maybe 40 minutes, 30 minutes away, and depending on how we feel and how we do is how long we work. But if we can hit 50 doors a day, that's what we want to do. So our goal is to kind of work smart as far as knocking on doors. You might go to a street that has 15 people on that street. Now, what I do is when I do get inside and I have a list of people on that street, I do ask some questions of people. Do you know Mrs. Smith down the street? How is she? What kind of situation is she in? And a lot of these people like to gossip and talk about their neighbors. So, yeah, I get a lot of information going that way.
Okay. And do you use GPS to put all your people in there first, or you just go and find them?
Oh, yeah. I've got to do GPS. Yeah, I got to make sure that I'm not wasting a lot of gasoline driving around.
Right. So you have no lead costs going into this except for whatever that is, 20 cents a name, something like that.
Yeah, very, very economical.
That is incredible. All right. Well, it sure has been a great value for you to share your time with me today, and I really appreciate it, Frank.
You bet, Chris. Glad to help.
Well, I hope you all have a wonderful day out in the field, and I'm sure we'll see it on the other end.